All right. Shall we? Oh, here we go. Got a few jumping in. So I'll wait a couple minutes. I should have been playing some soca. Don't you mute yourself, Kevon. You're talking.
Yeah, sorry. No, I was saying that my name has not changed yet, and I just changed it.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
change it here again. Yeah. That's okay.
Hi, Linda. Hi,
Hello,
Alex.
everyone.
Hi. Hi.
All right. We thought we'd give it maybe 2 more minutes, see if anybody else jumps in, and then we'll just start off. We are also waiting on Noemi, who had a few technical difficulties. So that is why we've paused a little bit. But thank you for coming. I know it's late. Yeah, Noemi said to start without her while she's trying to work out the details.
She's logging in. I see that she just logged in.
Okay.
Think so. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Right. We have officially got our 12 hours in the house. Welcome everybody to Awakenings, how we learn to care about racial, social, and environmental justice. We're streaming from the future with Crystal Zhang in China.
Hi, I'm Crystal. It's 5 a.m. I'm on Wednesday, March 13, I'm in Guangzhou, China.
Right. It's 10 p.m. here in the UK with Noemi and me.
Hi, everybody. Yes, in London.
And it's 29th of March for us. And it's 5 p.m. with Kevon. Kevon, you want to introduce?
Hi, yeah, I actually cut out there. Yeah, this modern technology stuff. Hi, I'm Kevon Foderingham. It's 5 p.m. on Tuesday, 29th March in Arima, Trinidad and Tobago, and wherever you are, the time is now.
Now. Lovely. We are part of the EPRG, Experimental Pedagogies Research Group, which is a research collective. This is a protective anti-discrimination space of mutual respect that should cause no harm and aim for good. We're recording this session for further experimental research, and we respect research protocols. So we're gonna just issue one trigger warning that the themes of this session might be triggering for some participants. And if that's the case for you, please feel free to leave the session and rejoin if or when you feel ready. And thank you for joining us. So I think for this session, we're gonna cover about 4 key questions. The question 2 and 3 might merge into it, depending on how the conversation goes. So I could give you the whole rundown, but I think it'll flow nicely if we just start off. So the first thing we're going to look at is how, I think maybe, the first thing we're going to look at is the introduction, where Crystal, Kevon, Noemi, and I kind of tell you why we're here and why the 4 of us are talking and what we're about, just so you know where we're coming from. So since we're starting in the future, Crystal, you want to go?
Sure, I can do a brief introduction of myself first.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, I'm in China now, but I'm just graduated from MA Design for Social Innovation Sustainable Futures. Noemi was my supervisor. So we make a project about the product life circle. So I introduce the project right now or later? Sorry, I can't hear you, Stacey.
We'll do the project afterwards with just a quick introduction of us, of each of us.
Sure. Yeah, and right now, I'm in China now. I was in Vancouver, then because of COVID, I back to China, and right now, after I graduate, I'm doing teaching right now. I'm fresh lecturer in a university in China.
Okay, brilliant. Kevon, you want to introduce yourself? Oh, we're getting a lot of feedback, so I'm going to mute myself. And Kevon, you chat, but the rest of us will mute.
Stacey, you're muted.
Yeah. Yeah, Kevon is also having technical issues. Are you hearing us, Kevon? Well, I know you're doing the best introduction ever, and we're just not getting it. No? Right. I'm hoping you can hear me, Kevon. We can't hear you right now.
Sure. My name is Kevon Foderingham, and I'm from Trinidad. Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna do a short intro for you because we can barely hear you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kevon Foderingham, and I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I am the executive director of an
Right. Right. Kevon is the executive director of Eastyard and for Common Good platform. And I don't know if I was the only one that didn't hear that and it came out really but Kevon runs
Can you hear me now?
No, so I'm just doing a short intro of you because we can barely hear you at the moment. That's what I say. I think you said a lot of stuff just now that we just didn't get. Kevon has the most connected art hub I have ever discovered. He manages to connect from Arima, Trinidad to Texas, New York, Dubai, South Africa, Bali, you name it. He can find emerging artists in that country and make them work together to do amazing things. And so Kevon, that's why we've got Kevon here, because one of his projects is covering exactly the kind of information we need to find out about how we learn about these crucial topics. But I'm sure you'll learn more about Kevon, and he'll put links in the chat so you can kind of explore a bit more if you're curious. Noemi?
Okay, I'm going to give it a go. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Good. That's a first step in this discovery period. I am, so my name is Noemi Sadowska, and I'm a program director in design school at LCC as part of the University of London Arts, of Arts London, the other way around. And I look after 8 different courses. So it's sort of part of, I'm looking after a portfolio of courses that span from design management, so kind of more commercial stuff and graphic branding and identity, all the way to the other side where it's all art direction, MAs and BAs. So lots of really interesting design practice. And I guess my design practice is creating learning experiences for students. So I'm here to exchange with my colleagues to hear from and kind of share our experiences about how we learn around these themes and issues and kind of see what comes along. So I'm connecting and sort of sharing and yeah, and kind of building, hopefully. Thanks, Stacey. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, just realized. And I am Stacey Lee Ross. I am a life story artist and associate lecturer at UAL. I specialize in inclusive practice in my teaching, but I also do my life story art and community projects with a view to building compassion through the arts. my idea, I guess, is that if people can be more loving and compassionate with each other, then our attitude changes and we can be more loving and compassionate with the environment. But we have to start with ourselves and each other if we have to care about anything else, and adopt that attitude with everything else. So that kind of is where I position that I come from. So if we could kick off with our first question, panel. How are we still learning at our grand old ages about racial, social, and environmental justice? Anybody want to jump in first?
I was going to jump in. I was going to suggest that we haven't scripted for answers.
So you haven't, sorry?
Can you hear me, or is it really odd?
No, I can hear you. Go.
Oh, okay. I was just saying that we haven't actually scripted how the question answer. So it's, yeah, it could be any one of us.
True. So, all right, I'll kick off then. I would say that maybe the main way that I'm still learning about all these issues is reflection. But there's also a lot of reading and listening and mistakes. Maybe reflection and mistakes are the two biggest ways I'm still learning. I find that recently, particularly on environmental issues, that I didn't realize how I felt about environmental issues until I was invited to participate in a certain project recently. And I couldn't understand why I was really uncomfortable with it. And I had to really sit down and do a lot of reflection around it and kind of talk it out with my husband, with friends. And, you know, kind of the more you talk, it's the more like, oh, why do I think that? And so there was a lot of reflection around it until I realized that it was really tied in with a lot of racial issues for me, which is something I didn't realize before. So I would say reflection is one of my main ways that I'm still learning about all these racial, social, environmental issues. I would say reading, but I was reading Nice Racism by Robin DiAngelo, and then I was experiencing nice racism at the same time. So I had to stop reading the book because there was a little too much nice racism at the same time. And then mistakes. So because none of us know it all. I mean, yes, I specialize in inclusive practice. Yes, I spend a lot of time decolonizing my curriculum when I teach, but I don't know it all, and I will never know it all. So I will make mistakes, and they are probably the biggest learning opportunities that I will come across. So I think those for me are the biggest ones. Who wants to go next?
Okay, I can go next.
I don't know. Yes.
Oh, yes, try and talk, Kevon. Let's see.
Can you hear me now?
Just about. You're a little bit delayed.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk and see.
Okay. So let me try. How am I learning about climate and racial issues? I think mainly it's through personal experience. I think that is how I am learning. Coming from a small island developing state that is very at risk of climate change and the issues surrounding climate change, where we have our seasons have changed so much, where we merely have a rainy and a dry season. Now there is no differentiation in seasons, and we have been affected by droughts and all of that. So every day I'm living this firsthand, and also in terms of racial issues, again, is firsthand. So whether it's positive or negative interactions I have being faced every day as a Black Caribbean male, I think that is how I'm learning, and also by research and learning from other people's experiences as well. So I think for me it's more experiential.
I'm muted, as usual. Crystal, you wanted to jump in just now.
Sure. Can you hear me right? Can you hear me right? Okay, fabulous. For me, I personally come from product design background. So when I moved back from Canada 2 years ago, I'm trying to put my design into the market. Then I start looking forward to some manufacture a different area to produce the product. But in the process, I find out when we want to launch a product to the market, there's a lot of process we have to face and have to communicate with. And I keep trying and keep communicating with others. During the process, I found that each process have their own issues when we are facing rather than social or environment issues. Because who are going to make our product or create our design? Are they getting enough pay? What is their working environment, especially here? So years ago, I got a job in university and started teaching. I recognized that what shall we bring to my student if I don't even know the entire design process and design thinking? So in my teaching or learning process, I'm trying to figure out that what is each process when we come up to a design? Should we push the design way more farther than we haven't figured out the issues in the society? So what I'm learning right now is trying to always communicating, like not only just the stakeholders or the students or people from all the areas. So I think communicating is the way when I doing my learning in environment issues or social justice.
Oh, Noemi?
Thank you for sharing what others have said already. I think for me, it's sort of a kind of combination of some of the things that you all have shared. It is about communication. So how I learn about these things, it's through communicating, through asking. It's about the kind of the learning experience, so experiencing some of the challenges in obviously different ways. It might kind of in a personal context, but trying to look for those as well. And very much like Stacey, you were saying about sort of reflecting on it. But I guess sort of what I would add to that is, in a way, it's kind of, I've been around long enough that I'm sort of for a certain period of time, sort of in my own education, kind of formal education, I was looking to others for answers. And at some point in my life, I've just kind of realized that there's a moment that people actually want me to have the answers and provide those. And that's a very scary moment, because what if I don't have them? And, and then what does that mean? And rather than I kind of sort of blagging it, I thought, actually, I'm just going to own that. I'm going to own the fact that I don't know. And so I kind of am on this personal journey of learning. And so the starting point is I am learning. I am asking people to kind of share their experience with me so I can learn from that and take time to go out and kind of take on sort of studying moments where I can, formally take a unit somewhere that sort of talks to me about inclusive teaching, for example, or, learn, when people challenge me and ask me difficult questions, again, use those as learning opportunities and own that process, sort of, rather than have the answers, say, no, I don't know, let's find out together. So that's how I learned that stuff.
I don't know if anybody in our audience wants to pop any of their comments on this in the chat, or any further questions you have on this in the chat. Even if you can't think of any until a little bit later on, both Crystal and Kevon have some really interesting projects where they are kind of creating environments for learning about these issues. So we're going to focus on those now. And I know Kevon's trying to reconnect with a better connection. So Crystal, if you want to start off with, tell us about your design sphere. Wait till you see this, guys.
Sure, I can talk about my project. The project
Yeah.
named the Loop Study. I can show the images with you first. If you can all see, when we type life circle is what pops up in Google, what life circle should look like, and how we learn, even how we teach life circle. Not sure it's really clear, but there you go.
The product
That's
life
usually
cycle.
what,
Yep.
yes, that's what usually a life circle gonna look like. Two-dimensional, screen-based, and flat-based. And static, nothing that we can change. Other information that are just like settled down and impossible to transfer or add any process to it. But I'm always wondering what transportation process can go either before the manufacture or after the production process. For the students or even me, we are not able to really change the process from two-dimensional circle or two-dimensional things. Based on these reasons, I'm start thinking that is there any possibility to recreate them or challenge the old way we learn the life circle. So I can show what the model looks like. It's gonna be a amended product life sphere. It's a little sphere here with different colors. I call it product life sphere. That is the product or the model I try to create and inspire as a design innovation. There's a tangible representation of life circle. Those model here is allowed users to take it apart, connect them, or reconnect them together. They're able to move around, add different colors on that. The model comes from a two-dimensional template here that you can download from the website. I can share the website later. Once we print up the different template with the physics, we are allowed to write it down all the process in our design process or the life circle, the circle we want to try. I also have like different language on that, just like for student easy to use without any language challenge here. There you go. Yeah. When we print it out from the website, then you can cut up the different small pieces here, which is like the representation of each design process. During the process, we can easily put that each process together with the order or the process we're trying to tell the stories or trying to explore. Each process is allowed them to always co-create, talking to others, sharing the experience, sharing the process, to learn about each process and how each process is all connected. I think there's like few reasons why I'm deciding that and really have the passion on that, because when I do the research, I find that the students usually only care about the material they use, what the material is sustainable. Shall we use the material from the end of life material? But they always overlook the other process. For example, the transformation, the transportation in each process, and also the marketing, as well as the social, who's gonna produce them, and also who's gonna use them, especially how much they're gonna pay. That's like all the process that we can learn from a product or a service. And I also find it out when we are doing teaching and learning, especially when we have the pandemic, we have to do it online courses. The students really easy to get lost when they are doing the screen-based things. So that's the thing that I can always, when we are thinking, there's like something we can do, something we can create, the action of connecting them physically is also the action they want to start making change. So I think that is how my tangible things can bring more interaction with students, as you can see here. What really out of my expectations when I doing the workshop with my students. They figure out there are other ways of putting the slide together, the pieces together. And also we figure out that it's possible to bring different proportions into the circle to represent different stakeholders, or even color coding, that you can use color to represent different stakeholders and who's gonna benefit from it. That is what I figured out from my workshop. Then I also have a survey to figure out, sorry, I'm answering the question 3, how do we know that works?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Probably I'm gonna just talk too much.
No, that was brilliant. Because what's really nice about that project is we all, especially if you're doing any sort of product design or business or any of those kind of courses where you learn about product life cycle, you learn about it as a flat 2-dimensional diagram, but your sphere makes it quite a tangible thing to interact with, where we, as I do a bit, I stick that in, but then I realize, oh wait, no, there's 3 aspects to that. So now I need 3 of those same pieces to stick in. And I think it reminds me of the joy of being able to scratch things out on a to-do list. As this fair starts to come together, you start to realize, oh wow, okay, my project is coming together. So I think I like the visibility of that. So we're going to another very visible project at this point. Kevon, let's see if your connection has improved.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah? Oh, thank God. Thank you. Okay. So as I mentioned before, my organization is called For Common Good. And what For Common Good has been doing is really championing the use of the arts to address social issues. And one of our partners, so what we do, so we are the overarching entity that focuses on arts for social change, and we partner with groups and organizations, helping them to build out their own programs, which we then fund. So it's more like a partnership. One such group is called No Filter, and they chose to focus on using photography to address social issues. So they had a group of young persons aged 12 to 18 who over a 3-month period went through a pretty intense training in photography. So they partnered with the Trinidad and Tobago Photographic Society, and they learned how to take really awesome pictures using their phones. And the second part of the program, they worked with the Art Therapy Association. So it was that mixture of how they built their personal skills as well as their technical skills. And the final part of the puzzle was facilitation and training that they received from persons who were trained in different areas of social change. And the result of that was a fantastic exhibition called What Matters, where each of these young people took photos of what mattered to them, and it culminated in an exhibition. What was really interesting was that a lot of them, there were no prompts or anything, a lot of them chose to focus on issues of climate change and the environment, which I thought was really powerful. So much so that the second cycle of this program is now underway, and everybody is focusing on climate action. So I think that shows how important that topic is. And as I said before, because we're in a small island state, we are so much more affected by climate change in terms of the hurricanes and the floodings and even drought now. So it's a lot of different things, and so I thought that was really powerful. As well as a big part of our Caribbean reality is tourism. So it means that the environment is even more important to us because that's like our bread and butter. Yeah? So what I'm going to do, hi?
I was going to say, do you want me to show the video while you're talking?
Yeah, go ahead, please. Mm-hmm. So this is a snippet of the actual exhibition. It was done virtually, and recently we did it physically. So Stacey is going to share. Everybody seeing it?
Can everybody see? You can keep talking over it and describing the project.
Okay, great. So as you see, a lot of the images there were of nature, of the environment, and each of them were asked to tell a story about their image that they captured. And it was really profound because all of these young people were so focused on environmental issues, focused on the ocean, focused on parks and open spaces. And they spoke so much about how it inspires them, how it makes them feel to be able to go to the ocean, how it feels when they go somewhere and there's like a lot of pollution and stuff and it makes them so angry. So, I mean, it really sparked a nerve. And also just to know that these images were captured on a phone without any editing software or anything. And these are really young people. And it has really blown us away. So we cannot wait for this second iteration of this project, which is underway now, as I said, it's underway now, and I'm even more excited. What Stacey is doing, so this is actually online, and we can share the link with you, where you can go through each of these images, and you can read each of the blurbs that explains why they captured these different images. But what I also wanted to share with you, we have a bit of an artist talk, which is about a 3-minute feature. And we are interviewing two of the participants, two of the artists, two of the photographers now, not just participants. And they said how this project inspired them. So I'm going to try to share on my end here and hope that technology wants me to win today. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, so far so good.
What is your opinion going forward of using photography as a tool for social change with young people? How effective do you feel it is compared to, say, other tools? Aliyah.
It's a social change photography as a tool to impact the younger generation. It's a part to finally understanding their true perspective. I can speak for myself and a few others that I know. Sometimes it's very difficult to voice your opinion, but with photography, the picture tells 1,000 words. Just that in itself allows, like, the opinion of them to be heard more or less. So I think using photography as a tool is definitely recommended or is needed. So that way, because we use photography all the time in taking images, so why not use it to change or use in a good way? So that's my take on it.
Yeah, and I think it's also that, you know, it's a tool that's accessible to almost everyone. Whereas some people think, oh, well, I have to have a talent to be an artist, or I have to have certain capabilities to do dance, or spoken word, or, you know, other arts. And I'm saying that, you know, so we have to get over that mindset for all of those, including, and also for photography. So this was about saying, getting over the mindset that, oh, I'm not a photographer, I just, you know, take stuff. No, you can be. What you can bring to what you can do with your camera phone can actually have a huge impact. So now, how do you feel about, like, the whole topic of social change?
Well, social change for me is something that needs to happen sooner rather than later. And the best way, as you mentioned, the best way to do it is to get the youths more involved, because as you say, the older persons are already, as you could say, stuck in their ways, so they only know how to do things one way. So if you give the youth the opportunity, you have a better chance for the future. And I think it's a great idea to use the art to do this, because it's a better way to get the message across. Like if you use a spoken word, a poem, even an artistic piece, rather than having something written in paper or a segment on English. So young people these days, they really pay attention to these things anymore. So if it's something, especially if they enjoy something, like if they enjoy music, for example, you will get a better response if you put a message in some song or poem for them, rather than if you just say it to them or write to them something to read, because they also able to engage, seeing that it's something that they actually enjoy.
Right. So out of babes, basically she was saying we need to get youth more involved in the discussion. We need to get youth more, interested in social change, and also using the medium of art is going to be a lot more impactful. It's a better channel than, as we say in Trinidad, chalk and talk. So better than standing in front of a blackboard and talking to them, but using the arts to get the message across and teaching them to inspire them. Yeah?
Yeah, brilliant. So I know there's probably quite a few questions about your project. Please pop them in the chat. We're just going to finish off. Crystal's going to share how she knows her project with her sphere works. And then if anybody's got questions, we'll try and throw them in there. So please, any comments or questions you want to do, add them into the chat. So Crystal, yes, tell us how you know your sphere works.
Yeah, I think seems my sphere is like, as a designer, I'm trying to use the skill of designer to emphasize the role of design thinking, design process, and use the design artifact to create the educational intervention. So in the first day of the workshop, I make the survey here, which I jotted here. In day one, I asked questions. After finish the workshop, immediately I did the survey. I asked students their understanding to product life cycle. So 67% of students say they clearly understand, and 34% of students say they mostly understanding. When I doing the research in day 115, I overlap the data here, and I find that only 28% of students say they clearly understand, and 61% of students say mostly understand, and 10% students say they don't understand after 5 months, which is totally, it's in my expectation, since we haven't talked about that in the past 5 months, and I asked them again. But when I asked the questions here, I asked them if they still think the product life cycle or sphere can help them understand the product life cycle sustainability better and how it means to society and environment. The data didn't change too much. And in the first day, 42% of students say they really agree that, and 48% of students say they agree that. That means almost 90% of students say they agree the product life cycle or sphere helps them to understand the product life cycle. When I overlap the 115 data, there are still 75% students say they agree of them. So when it comes up, the data shows me that, and also 24% of students say average, so like so, but none of the students say they disagree or really disagree, which is good to know that they do agree that the sphere helps them to understand the life cycle. And also, I also asked them if they think the sphere brings any impact to them. But what finds me like really interesting and surprises them, I asked them in the last question in day 115, I asked them if you try to get to have more information about product life cycle after the workshop, after creating the sphere, 50% of students say yes, they get more information for them after the workshop, and other half of them say no. When I'm trying to have like a small, not an interview, but conversation with them, say, when are you trying to get information for that? A student told me that she had all the information immediately after the workshop because the big data read her. So we pick up the big data can be another thing to help students to get to know them if they don't know something. But when we have to talk about that right now, their big data, their social media, start knowing they are interested in it, which could be a good beginning for them.
Yeah.
The sense big data, and our phone probably like hearing all the things we are talking about right now and keep sending you all the product life cycle things later. That is what I'm trying to find out. There's like more data here, but that is, I think the big data and social media is one of the most interesting things that students feedback to me.
I almost want to merge your two projects, because like I could imagine Kevon's participants who are now photographers using your sphere to understand all the implications of putting together an exhibition, because I think what you were explaining is most of them had never put together an exhibition before. And so going from, you know, learning about photography skills to learning about how to put together an exhibition, learning about environmental science and all the other issues that they'd picked out to the global goals. When you put that together with something tangible and they can see all the bits that they're learning, and then this sphere becomes, you know, the finished thing that they've made. I could like take your two projects and go,
yeah, absolutely. I agree. I also think what's fascinating is on one hand, you've got sort of young students kind of coming in, or young people coming in and sort of saying, this matters to us. It really, really does. But in a way, almost not having the kind of the tools to make an impact. So in a way, maybe the question for us isn't necessarily always providing information and content, but rather actually a way to navigate the content that's already out there and being able to discern what content is, you know, kind of grounded in facts and can be sort of further pushed through to kind of to draw conclusions and therefore act through design, through photography, through teaching, versus content that, you know, still needs to be evaluated or questioned or kind of moved on because it's no longer applicable and there are better ways of knowing. So I wonder, because sort of locally to us at UAL, a lot of our students, when we survey them, actually almost put us as an institution on the spot and sort of saying, you know, put some action behind these lovely words and principles and strategies and policies, and they're far more prepared to actually take these themes, these, you know, sort of environmental justice, social justice, all sorts of things that we tend to write into policies but struggle implementing. And I kind of would say that actually students who are coming into our classrooms are the students who a year ago or maybe 2 years ago were striking together with Greta Thunberg to, you know, when there was this sort of whole thing about demonstrating for climate emergency. They are now in our classrooms. They're now effectively in Kevon's workshops and Crystal's, you know, sessions on product lifecycle. And I think it would be just injustice and disservice to them if we don't engage with it. I don't think we have an option to step aside and say, well, let's look at making pretty things.
I don't think we have an option to not engage with it. The young people I have come across absolutely hold you to account. If you cannot engage in the difficult topics, they will make you engage with the difficult topics. So get ready to be uncomfortable, to say, I don't know, but I better come back with an answer next session if you don't know. Or sometimes to listen because they know way more than I ever knew at that age. way, way more. I have to say the young people make me feel like the world is not lost. The more I engage with young people, the more I think, oh, thank God for that.
Exactly. I'm mindful that there's a question in the chat from Jonathan who appeared with the dog, who was clearly more important, but I wonder whether we do want to record a response. So I guess, Kevon, maybe over to you.
So I saw the question, and I think, so how can we further empower the social movement supporting this belief? Definitely, well, there's a need for more programming of both my type and Crystal's type. So I think definitely wherever we can in our own spheres, whether it's school-based or community-based or nationwide-based, we need to provide more platforms and more opportunities for youth to not just learn, but to express themselves. Locally, we have a bit of a challenge with programs where youth are able to express themselves because, as I said, it's a lot of chalk and talk here. So a lot of the more academically inclined schools, which are these quote-unquote prestige schools here, it's really academic heavy. It's really academically heavy. So there's not a lot of opportunity for creative exploration. There's not a lot of opportunity for idea development because they are being taught how to pass exams and get very high scores. So I really think that more programs and opportunities that allow youth to explore and to really find out what matters to them as opposed to us telling them what matters. So really more opportunities for youth to express what matters to them in any shape or form. And in terms of what you said about the older folk like us trying to convince, definitely more intergenerational programming from the mindset of I don't use a lot of older people to actually facilitate our workshops. I tend to get younger people, and us older ones can sit in and be part of the discussion as opposed to trying to lead the discussion. So I think more intergenerational learning where we can co-create together with the older people as well as the youth.
I like the idea of the older people being part of the participant group, as opposed to constantly being in that position of power to lead things, which kind of, in some instances, immediately sets some young people's backs up. So that changes the dynamic and changes the conversation. So we have got about 12 more minutes and we've got one more question. And that question is very future focused. So what could the future look like? How do we imagine the future? Are there still teachers? What does education look like if equality is achieved? What are we doing in the future? And I mean, given that we have all these different ideas about the type of environments or tools that we could provide to support learning about these issues, if, somebody waved a magic wand and poof, it happened, what would that future look like for us? And this one is an open question. I think the panel will answer, but I would love to hear from the participants as well, because it'd be really interesting to find out, if the magic wand got waved and you were trying to create environments with your family, with your friends, with your students, whoever you're with, to promote this kind of learning around justice and injustice, how would you do it? I mean, or what would that look like? So
maybe I might jump in for the kind of the future question. I hope that there still be curiosity and discovery and serendipity, because I think those are kind of key elements that will allow us as a species, I guess, to learn that, so that the process of learning isn't forgotten. So that it's, in a world where, as we were saying, the future would have equality and we've kind of managed to get ourselves out of climate crisis. and we survived, then I hope that, you know, through that we don't become kind of depressed and despotent about it, but rather, you know, hopeful and curious and want to discover and kind of enjoy the serendipitous way of nature, because nature, you know, tries things and works things out, and if it works, yay. If it doesn't, okay, we'll just store that and try something else now. And I hope that that remains as also part of our own ability to learn and kind of continue to grow. So I'll start us off and now ping the ball to others.
I don't think I've got anything. Okay? I don't think I've got anything very profound to say, but I thought the question was really interesting because it made me double take slightly, because that idea that there'll be a point where you'd have to stop striving or people would stop needing to learn has never really entered my mindset. And but I think that hope, that position of hope and that position of imagining what a future might be like is really important to have and to kind of share and to imagine. So I don't think that, I just think it's a kind of amplification of the question almost, rather than a sense that I have any answers, and also just a kind of gratitude that's just jolted me in terms of a kind of thinking about, you know, where are we trying to go, and, you know, what is the aim and where does learning fit into that? So really interesting question, which I'll take from this session with gratitude. Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie.
Thank you.
That makes me think of two things. One is Candace Braffett, who's an author, and she talks about the fact that some people only follow her on Instagram if she's talking about Black issues. And she's like, but I want to talk about high heels as well, and lipstick and fashion. And so maybe the future is one where people can talk about whatever they want to talk about. They're not pigeonholed based on what they look like, what culture they come from, what religion they're in. And maybe the discussions become diverse enough that those things matter and don't matter, in the sense that we can talk about, you know, diversity and equality in the same breath that we can talk about, yo, you use that shade of lipstick too? You know? And that would be, for me, that would be a beautiful future, because then we'd be finding connecting strings and common grounds that don't just fall under, oh, hey, we have the same fight. But while we're doing that, we also have other things that we're interested in together. And that kind of feeds into Layla Saad's Good Ancestor, where she talks about if we think about ourselves as good ancestors, then what will we need to do now to be in the future have people look back and look at us and say, "Ooh, she was a good ancestor, he was a good ancestor," and let that be the thing that governs the decisions and behaviors that we operate with now. So those are the two thoughts that kind of make me think about kind of future progression. Crystal, you want to jump in?
Yeah,
Kevon?
yeah, for sure. I really agree with what you're just saying, that in the future we can just talk whatever we want there without talking about the culture, the country we come from, our skin. That brings me the idea of, like, I feel like in the future we're gonna be more kinetic, like more connected than right now. Even right now we have the internet. Right now we can just talk in different time zones. But I feel like in the recent years, especially during the pandemic, all the things happening right now, we have lost the connection, because those cultures or the country, what they are doing is really break out our connections. Like sometimes what the country is doing is it's not the individual they want. There's nothing we can change. So I feel like in the country, in the futures, that everyone should more kinetic without what the government is doing, what the policy looks like and what like the big things happening right now should not really stop the connection from each individual.
Jump in, Kevon.
I imagine a future, especially where learning is concerned, where we focus less on formal education and more on experiential learning. More about facilitation than teaching, because all the information is out there. So in the future, think of what the internet is now. Think of what is going to be in the next 20 years. I mean, it's just a repository of information. So I think letting the young people run wild, letting them explore, letting them learn for themselves, and us just being there to facilitate. So I don't see formal schooling being so important in the future. Yeah.
Anyone else in the audience want to throw in anything before we wrap up the session? Go about 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Anybody?
I also feel like, sorry, I was talking about connection. Sorry, just like something, one more sentence I would like to mention is when we talk about connection, it's not just a connection between human beings or individual, but also the environment and all the things happening to the entire society. We are all connected. So no one is like really get out of the circle or get out of the environment.
Yeah, I think there's no way to disconnect them. They're all connected. Exactly. And I suspect if we find justice in any one of those areas, we will find justice in all of those areas.
Exactly. So, it's like a pond, isn't it? It will spread. Exactly. But yeah, I think if there's anybody, last words in the audience, we've got a minute. and any other imaginaries of future for education?
Well, I'm going to put in the chat the thing we were talking about just now, with Layla Saad. If you search this on YouTube, I should have got the link in advance, but I haven't. But it's a really interesting documentary that raises quite a lot of questions that will set you to thinking. And so I'll find the link for that. There we go. Copy link address. This is the link. And I think with 2 minutes to go, now is the time to say the next session is going to be in the 24 hours. It's going to be Musico Discussionismo. I do not speak Italian well, apparently. I'm going to put the joining information for that in the chat as well. You've been listening to Crystal Zhang, Noemi Sadowska, Kevon Foderingham, and me, Stacey Lee Ross. Thank you so much for joining us. And hopefully you'll stick around if you don't plan to sleep tonight for for a few more hours in our 24 hours on Earth. The next session, the link is in the chat if you are thinking of joining in. And it's lovely to have you here. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Well, folks.
It's just us.
It's just us.
Bye.
Dude, next time, headphones.
No, it's really my connection, you know, it's not even the headphones. Today was really bad. So I was like, oh my God. Yeah, today was bad.
We've had meetings with you and heard you perfectly. Of course, the one meeting when you do need to.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Good old Murphy. Murphy never